Hi, my name is Eliza Beaumont. I'm 31 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse at Portland Children's Hospital. 7 months ago, I became a mother to the most beautiful baby girl I have ever seen, Lily. She has her father's green eyes, my dark curls, and a laugh that scrapes every protective instinct I have raw because it feels like something I could lose. My hands go cold before my brain even catches up. "Where's the baby monitor plugged in?" I hear myself ask, but my voice doesn't sound like mine. It's thin, sharp, vibrating with a panic that's just starting to bloom. My mother barely looks up from the TV. "Oh, we needed that outlet for Evan's laptop," she says, as if she's telling me she moved a lamp. "Don't worry, sweetie. The baby's fine. You really need to relax." For a second, the whole room tilts. "You unplugged Lily's monitor?" The words scrape out of my throat. "Her medical monitor?" Dad waves a hand in the general direction of the nursery. "She's right there, Eliza. We're sitting just a few feet away. We'd hear if something was wrong." You can't hear apnea, I want to scream. You can't hear a brain forgetting to tell lungs to breathe. Instead, my knees almost give out. The monitor's base sits on the dresser, dark and silent. No blinking green light, no soft background hum, just a dead, meaningless piece of plastic. For a moment, the horror is so big my body can't contain it. My vision tunnels. I think I'm going to pass out. "Mom," I whisper, "you unplugged my daughter's life support for a laptop charger." She rolls her eyes, the way she did when I was 12 and upset about Evan getting the bigger bedroom. "It's just a baby monitor, Eliza. You're being paranoid again. The baby is fine. You have to stop dramatizing everything." Nathan is already at the crib, his firefighter training moving faster than his emotions. He's checking Lily's color, her breathing, the tiny rise and fall of her chest. His jaw is so tight I can see the muscle twitch. "She's okay," he says, voice rough, relief and fury tangled together. "She's breathing, but—" He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't have to, but she might not have been. We plug the monitor back in. The green light flickers to life, beeping its steady reassurance. I grab the dresser for support, feeling my heart slam against my ribs like it's trying to break free. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is exactly what happens when your child's life gets weighed against your brother's comfort in the same scale your parents have been using your entire life. Lily was born with infant apnea. If you're not familiar with that term, let me translate it into what it actually means at 3:00 a.m. when the house is dark and quiet. Sometimes her brain simply forgets to tell her lungs to breathe. 1 second she is fine, the next she isn't. The first time it happened, she was 4 days old. I was changing her diaper in the hospital, hands clumsy with exhaustion and love, when her skin suddenly went from pink to grayish blue right there in my arms. The monitor above her crib screamed. Nurses ran in. Someone pulled me back as they worked over my child's impossibly tiny body. That week in the NICU carved something permanent into me. Watching the monitor numbers jump and plunge, learning infant CPR, while my real baby lay 3 feet away with wires taped to her chest. Signing discharge papers that essentially said, "You can take her home, but if you ever stop paying attention, she might die." We didn't leave with a simple baby monitor from some baby store. We left with medical equipment, prescribed by her pulmonologist, Dr. Amanda Whitmore, a specialized apnea monitor with a sensor under her mattress that tracks every breath Lily takes. If her breathing becomes irregular or stops, an alarm sounds, loud, piercing, impossible to ignore. My boyfriend, Nathan, is a firefighter. He has seen what happens when help arrives too late. He sat through every one of those hospital briefings with me. His big hands clenched so tightly his knuckles went white. When we brought Lily home, that monitor became our third parent. We keep it plugged in, positioned perfectly, armed 24/7. The green light is our heartbeat. The alarm is our lifeline. We never turn it off. We never unplug it. We can't, because there was another night, 2 months ago, when that alarm shattered the silence at 2:14 a.m. Lily was in her crib, perfectly fine, and then she wasn't. The sensor caught the change. The alarm wailed. Nathan reached her in 3 strides while I dialed 911 with shaking hands. She started breathing again before the paramedics arrived. They checked her, told us we'd done everything right, left us alone in a house that suddenly felt like it had almost become a tomb. We held her all night after that. Neither of us dared to sleep. That is what that baby monitor does. My parents know this, or they were told, many times. Patricia and Dale, early 60s. Mom is a retired elementary school teacher. Dad used to manage a hardware store. On paper, they're the kind of grandparents people envy. Baking cookies, talking about college funds, reposting baby pictures with heart emojis. But there is one axis on which everything in our family tilts. My younger brother, Evan. He's 26 and works in video game design. At least that's what his LinkedIn says. In reality, he's been working on something big since he was 19. My parents talk about his projects like they're stock options about to mature. They rearrange their lives around his schedule, his moods, his creative flow. I grew up in that gravity well. I was the responsible one, the one who didn't need as much attention. I got the smaller bedroom because Evan needed space for his ideas. I got the off-brand sneakers so Evan could have the exact ones all the cool kids wore. When I got into nursing school, Mom said, "That's wonderful, honey," and then immediately pivoted to Evan's latest concept art for a game that still doesn't exist. So when Lily was born and we realized we needed help, real help, I did something that felt unnatural. I let my parents back into my daily life. At first, they showed up. They came over so I could nap for 2 hours without jumping at every sound. Mom would sit in the nursery, humming little songs while Lily slept, the monitor quietly tracking every breath. Dad would bring crossword puzzles and sit in the rocking chair, reading his Tom Clancy novels with one eye on the blinking green light. I drilled them on the rules. Never unplug the monitor. Never turn it off. If the alarm sounds, check on her immediately and call us if you're unsure. I showed them the emergency inhaler on the changing table. Nathan did the same. We walked them through everything as if they were trainees. They nodded. They listened. They even repeated the instructions back to us. For a while, it worked. For a while, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, Lily's existence had finally shifted their priorities. That being grandparents would make them see me not as the responsible daughter who can cope, but as a mother who sometimes couldn't. Then Evan lost his apartment, and all those old gravitational forces I'd spent years escaping snapped back into place. Evan lost his apartment the way he loses everything else, slowly, predictably, and somehow still with everyone acting surprised at the end. His roommates finally kicked him out after months of him forgetting to pay his share of the rent. The money had gone to new computer equipment, of course, hardware for a game that was always almost ready to pitch. My phone buzzed with a family group text from Mom. "Evan's having a rough time right now. His roommates were so unfair. We're letting him stay with us in Beaverton for a while until he gets back on his feet." I read it in the dim blue light of the nursery, Lily asleep in her crib, the monitor's green light blinking like a heartbeat. I stared at that message for a long time. I knew exactly what "for a while" meant in my family's language. It meant, until we feel useful again. It meant, until he breaks our hearts or drains our bank account or both. It also meant their lives were about to revolve around him again. Evan moved into their guest room within a week. By the end of the second week, their guest room had exploded across the entire house. His gaming rig colonized the dining room table, 3 monitors, LED light strips, a high-end microphone for streaming. He stuck sound-dampening foam on their walls and complained about their internet speed until they upgraded their plan. Mom sent me pictures proudly. "Look how professional his setup is. He's really going to make it this time, Eliza." I zoomed in on one of the photos, noticing how her framed family pictures had been pushed to the far edge of the buffet, nearly falling off. Evan's gear stood front and center. It felt like a metaphor for our entire childhood. They rearranged their days around his creative flow. Dinner times shifted because he couldn't be interrupted during critical sessions. They spoke in hushed voices when he slept until noon because he was up late working. Their quiet retirement disappeared under the constant soundtrack of his yelling into a headset at his teammates until 3 in the morning. And they loved it. My mother's text took on a giddy, breathless tone she hadn't used since I was a little girl bringing home perfect spelling tests. "It's so nice having him home. We're watching his new concept trailer tonight. You should come over." I'd reply, "Can you watch Lily Thursday afternoon so I can get some sleep? Nathan's on a long shift." More and more often, the answer was no. "Oh, honey, Thursday's tough. Evan has a big deadline and needs the car for a networking event. Maybe next week?" Or, "We were going to, but Evan was up all night working. We don't want to wake him by leaving early. You'll manage, right? You're so strong." That line always came back to me like a curse. "You're so strong, you'll manage." I don't think they understood that strength has limits, that it's not a bottomless well you can keep drawing from without ever refilling. Lily's apnea demanded a level of vigilance that rewired my nervous system. Nathan and I slept in shifts, trading off nights so someone was always alert to the monitor, to the slightest change in her breathing pattern. I quit my job temporarily because no daycare would accept an infant with apnea. The liability was too high. Our world shrank to the size of our small house and the radius of that monitor's alarm. Those early months blurred into a cycle of bottles, alarms, appointments, and fear. There were days when the only time my shoulders unclenched was when my parents were there, sitting in the nursery, promising to keep watch while I slept. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, their enthusiasm faded. They still claimed they wanted to help. They still talked proudly about being involved grandparents. But every request I made had to pass through an invisible filter. How does this affect Evan? "Can you come by tomorrow morning?" I asked one week, my voice thin with exhaustion. "Lily's been having more irregular episodes. I haven't slept more than 3 hours straight in days." Mom hesitated. I could practically hear the gears turning. "Tomorrow. Evan has a new build he's testing with some online friends. He really needs the house quiet. Maybe the afternoon instead?" The afternoon became something came up. Something came up became, "We'll see how we feel." And more than once, "You chose to have a baby, honey. This is what parenting is." One afternoon, I drove out to their house with Lily for a visit, hoping that seeing her in person might remind them what was at stake. Evan's voice echoed from the dining room as he shouted into his microphone. "I told you to cover left. Why are you pushing mid? Oh my God, you're useless." Mom met me at the door, flustered. "Shh, shh, he's streaming," she whispered, like we were in church. "Try to keep Lily quiet, okay? His followers can hear everything." I stood there in the foyer, diaper bag digging into my shoulder, car seat heavy in my hand, my baby's medical monitor app open on my phone. And it hit me, hard, that in this house, my child's needs were going to be treated as background noise to Evan's audience. We didn't stay long that day. While Mom was in the kitchen, I heard Evan grumble from the doorway of the dining room. "Can you not bring the baby on my stream days? The crying messes up my audio levels." Something inside me went very still and very cold. "I'm not bringing her here again on your terms," I said quietly, more to myself than to him. It was a small decision, a private one. But in hindsight, it was the first boundary line I drew in this phase of the story. Weeks passed. Lily had good days and bad nights. Some nights the monitor stayed quiet. Some nights the alarm jolted us awake with its shrill warning, and I would sprint to her crib, heart in my throat, counting the seconds until I felt her chest rise again. Every episode etched itself into my memory like a scar. Nathan tried to shield me where he could, taking extra shifts so we could afford the avalanche of medical bills. His eyes were always tired, his voice always gentle. When the alarm went off, we moved like a practice team. He handled the immediate check. I handled the emergency protocol. We didn't have the luxury of panic. We had procedures. Then came the weekend that broke everything. Nathan was scheduled for a 24-hour shift at the station when one of his coworkers had a family emergency. The shift captain called. Could Nathan cover an extra day? He looked at me across the kitchen table, coffee gone cold between us. "It's overtime," he said quietly. "We could really use it with the hospital bills." I knew he was right. I also knew I hadn't had a full, uninterrupted night of sleep in. I wasn't even sure how long. "We'll manage," I said, the lie automatic. "I'll ask my parents to come over during the day so I can rest." He frowned. "Are you sure they'll actually show up?" That question shouldn't have stung as much as it did. "I'll make them understand this time," I said. "I'll explain exactly how bad it's been this week." Because that part was true. Lily had been having more irregular breathing patterns. Not full apnea episodes, but enough dips and spikes on the monitor to keep me on constant edge. I'd been checking on her every 10 minutes, even when the alarm was silent, just to make sure the app wasn't malfunctioning. By the time Friday morning came, my hands were shaking so badly from exhaustion, I nearly dropped the coffee mug. I called my parents at 8:30 a.m., standing at the kitchen counter with Lily dozing in her swing and the monitor app open on my phone. "Mom, I need help today," I said without preamble. "Nathan's on a double shift. I haven't slept more than an hour at a time in 2 days. I'm starting to feel unsafe, like I might fall asleep standing up." On the other end, she made a sympathetic noise. "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. It's just, Evan has an important pitch meeting this afternoon. He's practicing his presentation in the living room and needs the house quiet. We promised we'd be here for him." I closed my eyes, gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles whitened. "Mom, he can practice at Starbucks," I said, forcing my voice to stay level, "or in his car, or literally anywhere else. I'm telling you, I am not safe to care for Lily alone like this. If I fall asleep too deeply and the monitor alarm goes off, the silence on the other end was loaded. He needs the big TV to review his slide deck properly, she said finally, like that was self-evident. Can't you manage until tomorrow? No, I whispered. I can't. I'm shaking. I'm forgetting things. I almost put her bottle in the cabinet instead of the fridge. I am telling you, as your daughter and as a medical professional, I need sleep. Today, I need you here. She sighed, that long, put-upon exhale that meant I was being difficult. Fine, she said at last. We'll come over, but we'll have to leave by 3. Evan's meeting is at 4:30, and we promised to take him to the Cheesecake Factory afterward to celebrate. Of course they did. 3 is fine, I said, because I didn't have the energy to argue about their dinner plans when I was trying not to collapse. They arrived at my house in northeast Portland around 11. Dad came in first, carrying Mom's purse in one hand and Evan's massive gaming laptop bag in the other. Evan asked us to drop this off at his friend's place later, Dad explained, lifting the bag as if it were justification. He'll need it for some follow-up work after the pitch. The bag looked like it weighed more than Lily. In another life, another version of me might have asked why a 26-year-old man couldn't deliver his own laptop. In this one, I was too tired to care. I led them into the nursery. Lily slept peacefully in her crib, cheeks flushed with that perfect milk-heavy softness only babies have. The monitor next to her blinked its steady green reassurance. I walked them through the drill again, slower this time, my words dragging with exhaustion. Monitor stays plugged in. You do not touch this outlet, I said, pointing at it. If the alarm sounds, you go to her immediately. Don't assume it's a false alarm. Call me if anything feels off. Her emergency inhaler is on the changing table. Everything you need is in this room. We know, honey, Mom said, already half distracted by a text on her phone. We've done this before. I'm serious, I insisted, nausea swirling in my stomach. Some part of me, some tiny anxious piece, wanted to grab their faces and make them repeat every instruction word for word. You don't unplug it, not for anything, not for a lamp, not for your phone, not for... Eliza, Dad interrupted with a chuckle. We got it. Relax. Go sleep. Relax. I went to my bedroom, set my alarm for 2 hours, and collapsed onto the bed fully dressed. The feeling of falling into sleep so quickly was almost violent, like dropping through ice. I didn't hear them moving around the house. I didn't hear whatever conversation they had in the nursery. I didn't hear the decision that would turn into the worst 43 minutes of my life. What woke me was Nathan, 2 hours later, bursting through the bedroom door in his uniform, eyes wild. Eliza, he said, voice shaking. Where's Lily? Nathan's voice doesn't sound like his voice. It's too raw, too sharp, too close to breaking. My eyes snap open. My body lurches upright before my brain can even process the words. In the nursery, I stammer, already scrambling off the bed. She's with my parents. Why? Nathan, what's wrong? He doesn't answer. He just turns and sprints down the hallway. I chase him, my legs heavy and clumsy from sleep, my heart slamming itself against my ribs like it wants out. As we approach the nursery, I can already see the problem. The monitor screen in the hallway app is blank. No blue breathing line, no heart rate display, nothing. Just a black screen. No, I whisper. Oh God, no, no, no. We round the corner. My parents are sitting calmly on the couch in the living room, sipping iced tea and watching HGTV. My mother glances over, mildly annoyed by the commotion. What on earth? Why are you running? Nathan doesn't even look at them. He heads straight into the nursery and I follow. Lily is in her crib, asleep. The monitor's base unit, her medical breathing monitor, is dark. No lights, no sound, no power. It's dead. All the blood drains from my body so fast I feel myself sway. My hand hits the doorframe to keep from collapsing. Where's the baby monitor plug? Nathan demands, his firefighter voice emerging, controlled, dangerous. Mom answers casually, like she's talking about misplacing a throw pillow. Oh, we needed that outlet for Evan's gaming laptop. Don't worry, sweetie, the baby's fine. You really need to relax. I freeze. Nathan freezes. The whole room seems to stop breathing with me. You unplugged Lily's monitor? I choke out. Mom blinks at me like she genuinely doesn't understand the problem. It's just a baby monitor, Eliza. You get so worked up over these things. She's right there. We're right here. Everything is fine. Lily has apnea, I whisper. Apnea. She stops breathing in her sleep. That monitor alerts us before she dies. Dad frowns. We were just in the next room. You think we can't hear if something's wrong? Nathan's hands are shaking as he leans over Lily's crib, watching her chest rise and fall. You can't hear apnea, he says through clenched teeth. There's no sound. Babies don't gasp for air when they stop breathing. They just stop. She's breathing now, Mom says, folding her arms. See, nothing happened. You don't know what happened, Nathan snaps, because the monitor was off. Dad waves a hand dismissively. We unplugged it an hour ago. It's fine. I feel the room tilt again. An hour? I whisper. Mom, how long has it been unplugged? Mom shrugs. I don't know. Maybe 40 minutes? Evan needed the outlet for his laptop so he could rehearse his slides. The other outlets in this room are old and loose. This was the only one that worked well. It's not a big deal. I collapse to my knees. Nathan moves instantly, kneeling beside me, gripping my shoulders. Eliza, he says, look at me. I can't. I'm staring at Lily, so small, so fragile, her face relaxed, her lips a soft pink, completely unaware that she may have spent the last 40 minutes on a silent countdown. It's okay, Nathan repeats, but his voice breaks too. She's breathing. She's okay. Instead, I stand up on trembling legs and face my parents. You unplugged... My voice shatters. I try again. You unplugged medical equipment for a laptop. Mom scoffs. Not just any laptop. Evan's work laptop. He has a big pitch today. This meeting could change his career. Nathan's face goes red. Dark red. Fire station red. So you unplugged my daughter's medical equipment for a slide deck? Don't yell at your mother, Dad warns, standing up. We didn't know it was that serious. Yes, I scream. You did! Lily flinches at my voice. I immediately lower it, even though I feel like I'm burning from the inside out. We told you, I say, shaking. We told you 1,000 times. I showed you how the monitor works. Nathan explained it. Dr. Whitmore explained it. You watched her stop breathing once. You know. Mom rubs her temples. Eliza, you always exaggerate. You've been overly anxious ever since she was born. This overreaction isn't healthy. Nathan snaps. You endangered our child, he says, voice low and vibrating with fury. You don't get to call her overreactive. You unplugged a life-saving device. He plugs the monitor back in. The lights flash on. The sensor restarts. The soft, rhythmic beeping fills the room. I hear myself breathe again for the first time in what feels like hours. I need to know the exact time you unplugged this, Nathan says, grabbing his phone. The app logs it. He scrolls, then stops, jaw tightening. It went offline at 12:32, he says quietly. It's 1:15 now. 40 minutes. 43 minutes. I grab the side of the crib to keep myself from collapsing. 43 minutes, where if Lily had stopped breathing, no one would have known. No alarm. No warning. No chance. Mom has the audacity to look offended. We were right here. You're being dramatic. She's fine. See? Dad nods. We came all this way to help you, and this is the thanks we get? Nathan turns toward them with a look I've only ever seen once, when he responded to a call about a drunk driver who nearly killed a child. Get out, he says. Mom gasps. Nathan. Get out of our house, he repeats, voice deadly calm. Now. Dad starts to protest, but Nathan steps forward, just a single step, and suddenly my father, who has never backed down from anything in his life, goes pale. You don't get to be here, Nathan says. Not after what you did. Mom huffs. We were doing you a favor by coming over. This is ridiculous. I finally look up. My voice is ice. The only reason my daughter is still alive, I say, is because she got lucky, not because of anything you did. You could have killed her. Silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that feels like the oxygen has been sucked out of the walls. My parents leave in a flurry of indignation, Dad mumbling something about disrespect, Mom complaining that I'm unstable and ungrateful. The moment the door closes, I collapse on the couch, sobbing so hard my ribs ache. Nathan holds Lily, checking her breathing over and over, unable to stop himself. He checks the monitor again, then again. The green light blinks. Everything is normal. You should sleep, he tells me softly. I can't, I whisper. Because sleep is now a threat. Sleep means trusting another adult. Sleep means trusting my parents, and that trust is dead. How long was she unmonitored? I ask again. Like maybe if I hear it one more time, it'll feel less terrifying. Nathan checks the app. 43 minutes, he repeats. 43 minutes where she could have slipped away silently and never woken up. 43 minutes stolen from her because Evan needed to charge his laptop. They call that night. Dad first. What's going on, Eliza? You hung up on us earlier. Your mother is very upset. I sit on the couch with Lily asleep on my chest, the green monitor light blinking beside me. You unplugged her breathing monitor, I say, voice steady. That's what's going on. We didn't know. Yes, I cut in. You did. I told you. Nathan told you. Dr. Whitmore told you. You sat through her appointment. You signed the paperwork. You watched her stop breathing once, remember? You were right there. He hesitates. We didn't realize it was that serious. You didn't care that it was that serious, I say simply, because Evan needed an outlet. That's not fair. Dad, I whisper, you unplugged a life-saving medical device for a laptop. There's no version of that where you're the victim. He goes quiet. I hear Mom in the background, her voice sharp, defensive. Let me talk to her. Mom takes the phone. Eliza, she begins, already using her syrupy apology voice. We're sorry if you felt upset. I close my eyes. If, I repeat. Yes, she says, exasperated. You're tired. When you've slept, you'll understand we were just trying to help. By unplugging the only thing keeping your granddaughter alive, I snap. You always overreact. I'm a pediatric nurse, I remind her. Nathan is a firefighter with EMT training. We know exactly how dangerous this is. We explained it to you. You ignored it. Well, she says stiffly, you've always been dramatic. I feel something inside me finally break. It's not loud. It's not messy. It's just final. No, I say. I'm done. You don't get to be near my daughter again. Eliza. Good night. I hang up. Then I block their numbers. Nathan doesn't say a word. He just takes Lily from me, kisses her tiny forehead, and whispers, She's safe. We'll keep her safe. For 2 full days, the house feels like a quarantine zone. Quiet, sterile, holding its breath. Nathan goes back to the station for his next shift, but not before triple-checking every setting on Lily's monitor, then checking it again. He leaves notes taped to the wall. Protocol reminders neither of us really need, but both of us need to see. I don't sleep much. Every time Lily exhales, I find myself holding mine until she inhales again. On the second evening, the phone rings, not from my parents, whose numbers are now blocked, but from my Aunt Veronica, my mom's older sister. I stare at the caller ID for a moment before answering. Eliza, she says, with that carefully measured tone people use when they're pretending not to take sides. Your parents are really torn up about what happened. My laugh is sharp, humorless. Are they? They feel terrible, she insists. They're crying. They're upset. They endangered Lily, I say flatly. They weren't upset until we confronted them. Aunt Veronica sighs. I hear her shifting on her couch. She lives alone, a quiet life with a quiet cat, and she's always been the most emotionally neutral person in our family. I know what they did was irresponsible, she says gently, and I'm not defending it, but they're your parents. They're old. They made a mistake. Mistakes, I say carefully, are things you do accidentally. They made a choice. They unplugged a breathing monitor for a laptop charger. Well, and they've been told her condition is life-threatening. Multiple times, by multiple professionals. That's not we didn't know. That's we didn't care. Veronica is silent. It was 43 minutes, I continue, voice cracking despite my best effort to keep it steady. 43 minutes where Lily could have stopped breathing silently in her crib, and we would have found her cold. There is a sharp inhale on the other end of the phone. Eliza, I didn't realize. Because they didn't tell you, I snap. They're saying they came to help and we attacked them. I'm not saying your feelings aren't valid. For once, I interrupt, my voice trembling. I am not talking about feelings. I am talking about medical fact. They unplugged life-saving equipment because Evan needed an outlet. That's it. That's the whole explanation. Veronica doesn't argue after that. She apologizes softly and hangs up. The next call comes from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then my phone buzzes with a text. It's me, Evan, please pick up. My stomach twists. I answer only because some masochistic part of me wants to hear what excuse he's going to offer. Eliza? He says, sounding irritated, like I've inconvenienced him by existing. What is happening? Mom and Dad are devastated. You're blowing everything way out of proportion. I close my eyes. Did they tell you what they did? They said you screamed at them and kicked them out over nothing. They were doing you a favor while you took a nap. Evan, I cut in. They unplugged Lily's apnea monitor. Silence. Then, her what? Her medical breathing monitor, I say, enunciating every word slowly. The one that alerts us if she stops breathing. They unplugged it. So you could charge your laptop. Another silence. Then a defensive huff. I didn't tell them to unplug anything. You told them you needed to charge your laptop, I say. They chose your convenience over Lily's safety, because that's how they always operate. You know that. You're blaming me now? He demands. Yes, I say simply, partially. Because this isn't just about the outlet. This is about a family dynamic where your needs are always more urgent, more important, more real than anyone else's, even when a baby's life is on the line. That's not fair. That's reality. He exhales sharply. I didn't know Lily had some serious condition. Mom said she had a little breathing trouble. My jaw clenches. She was in the NICU for a week, I say. Do you know who came to the hospital that week? No. You didn't, I say. But they did. They saw her hooked up to machines. They watched the alarms go off once. They signed discharge paperwork. They know exactly what apnea means. Evan's voice quiets. I didn't know that. I know you didn't, I whisper, because you never ask about anyone but yourself. He doesn't respond. For what it's worth, he finally murmurs, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of that to happen. Sorry, I say softly, doesn't resuscitate a baby. I hang up before he can reply. Over the next week, my parents try every route except accountability. They show up at my door. I don't answer. They leave bags of baby clothes on the porch. Nathan returns them unopened. They call Nathan's parents, asking them to talk some sense into us. Nathan's mother, Caroline, calls me instead. They unplugged medical equipment, she asks, horrified. For a computer charger? Yes. Oh, sweetheart, she says, voice heavy with anger, not aimed at me. Keep them away from Lily. That's not a misunderstanding. That's dangerous negligence. Nathan's father agrees. They knew better, he growls. I worked in emergency response for 20 years. People don't get do-overs when it comes to breathing. For once, someone in my life says the exact thing I need to hear. That weekend, I learned my parents have started posting vague things on Facebook, missing our precious granddaughter. Some people make parenting so much harder than it has to be. Comments pour in. Supportive, sympathetic, loving. For them, not for us. Something inside me snaps in a way I didn't expect. I open Facebook. I write one short, blunt post. My parents unplugged my daughter's apnea monitor, the medical device that alerts us when she stops breathing, so my brother could charge his gaming laptop. They were told never to touch it. They did anyway. My daughter could have died. We will not be resuming contact with people who prioritize laptop chargers over a baby's life. Comments disabled. The post exists for exactly 90 minutes before Facebook removes it for violating community guidelines about family disputes. But 90 minutes is long enough. Screenshots spread like wildfire. People who lectured me about forgiveness go silent. People who dismissed my concerns start texting apologies. People who defended my parents unfriend them. It is the first time in my entire life that the truth of our family dynamic becomes undeniable to everyone. 4 weeks later, Evan moves out of my parents' house. No dramatic announcement. No big fight. Just a quiet update from a cousin. He found a new place in Southeast. They're devastated. Of course they are. Evan was their son. Without him in orbit, their universe collapses. A week after that, they send me an email. Subject line, a sincere apology. I open it because some small part of me still wants them to understand. It begins promisingly, admitting they made a terrible mistake, that they should never have touched the monitor, that they failed to grasp how serious Lily's condition truly is. But then, we hope you can forgive us and allow us to be part of Lily's life again. She's our only grandchild. We're her family too. That's when I know. They're not apologizing because they understand. They're apologizing because they want access. There's a difference. A very big one. At Lily's next appointment, I tell Dr. Whitmore what happened. She goes still, horrified. Then she says, I'm documenting this, and I'm writing them a letter. I blink. You don't have to. Oh, I absolutely do, she says. They need to understand exactly what the consequences could have been. Her letter is brutal, clinical, precise, unavoidable. My parents call it unnecessary and embarrassing. Of course they do. That night, I sit in Lily's nursery long after she falls asleep. The monitor blinks beside her. Nathan sits on the carpet, elbows resting on his knees, watching her crib like it's the most important thing in the universe. Because it is. She was lucky, he says quietly. I nod. But I know the truth. Luck is inconsistent. Boundaries aren't. They won't get near her again, I say. Ever. Nathan nods, eyes softening. That's the right call. And it is. Because in the end, this isn't a story about forgiveness. It's a story about choosing the child who can't choose for herself. And finally, I choose Lily over the people who never chose me. The house is quiet in a way I'm not used to. A soft, steady quiet that doesn't feel like dread anymore. It feels like healing. like the air has stopped vibrating with other people's expectations. Lily sleeps in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling in that perfect rhythm I never take for granted. The monitor hums softly beside her, its green light glowing like a guardian. It's been a month since everything collapsed. A month of no calls, no knocks on the door, no, we're just stopping by, ambushes. A month of breathing, but the silence doesn't last. Not in my family. It starts with my cousin Bree sending me a screenshot from Facebook Messenger. Aunt Patricia added you to a group chat, Family Healing Circle. I leave the group immediately. 30 seconds later, another screenshot from Bri appears. Patricia, I think Eliza is being manipulated by Nathan. She would never cut us off like this on her own. I laugh under my breath, sharp, humorless. Of course. It couldn't possibly be that I made a choice they don't like. It had to be a man's influence. If motherhood has taught me anything, it's that some people would rather believe a woman is brainwashed than believe she's angry for a good reason. The next day, unsolicited advice starts pouring in. My uncle texts, your parents didn't mean any harm. You should forgive. Life's too short. My mother's friend, whom I met twice in my life, writes, your mom is heartbroken. Please remember she's family. One of my old classmates messages, your post was really harsh. Maybe too harsh? They're still your parents. It's the same chorus I heard growing up. Don't make waves, Eliza. Don't upset the balance. Don't make people uncomfortable with your needs. But now it's not just about me. Now it's about Lily. So I ignore every message, every plea, every guilt trip. Boundaries are only boundaries if you hold them when it's hard. 3 days later, someone bangs on the front door. Nathan, who just returned from a shift and still smells faintly of smoke, looks at me. Eliza? I shake my head. Don't open it. But he checks the peephole. It's your parents. My stomach twists, but not in fear. Not anymore. In certainty. No, I say. We're not doing this. Nathan nods. He trusts me. That still surprises me sometimes, how unwavering he is, how quietly, consistently supportive. My parents knock again, harder. Eliza! Mom's voice calls through the door, thick with desperation. We know you're in there. Please talk to us. I walk into Lily's room, close the door gently, and sit beside her crib, listening to her soft breathing. Nathan stays in the living room. I hear him speak through the door. Go home. Dad's voice is sharp. We deserve to see our granddaughter. You endangered her, Nathan says, calm but ice cold. This isn't negotiable. Mom's voice rises. It was one mistake. One mistake that could have killed her, Nathan says. Leave. The knocking eventually stops. The car engine starts. They leave. Lily doesn't stir. But they don't stop. They pivot. Of course they do. When direct pressure fails, they turn to indirect. My mother mails a handwritten letter, on pale pink stationery with butterflies on the edges, like she thinks the cuteness will soften the impact. I open it only because I need to know what angle they're trying next. Dear Eliza, we love you. Please let us apologize properly. We made a terrible mistake, but we deserve a second chance. We are her grandparents. You can't erase us from her life. We're family. There it is. The entitlement. The insistence that genetics should override consequences. I fold the letter carefully and slide it into a folder labeled Documentation, right next to Dr. Whitmore's medical letter, just in case. The apology attempts escalate. A box arrives on our doorstep from an upscale baby boutique. Inside, a designer blanket, a silver rattle, a handwritten note. For Lily. We hope you'll let us see her soon. Nathan picks up the rattle, turns it over, reads the engraving. It's engraved with love, Nana, and Papa, he says softly. I swallow hard. Part of me wants to cry. Part of me wants to scream. Most of me wants to throw it in the trash. Instead, I return it, unopened and unaccepted. I include a short note. Gifts do not repair broken safety. When that doesn't work, they try pressure from extended family again. My Aunt Rosa calls. Eliza, your parents are miserable. They say you've become cruel since you had the baby. Do you really want Lily to grow up without grandparents? She'll grow up without people who endanger her, I say simply. You're so cold, she whispers. No, I say, voice trembling only a little. I'm a mother. And that ends that. A week later, the situation shifts. Not because of them. Because of me. Because I wake up one morning, walk into Lily's room, see her smiling up at me, her little fists waving, and I realize I'm not scared anymore. I'm still angry. I still shake when I think about those 43 minutes. I still wake up sometimes imagining a different outcome, one where the nursery is too quiet and the monitor is off and I'm too late. But fear isn't running my life. The boundary I set didn't isolate me. It protected us. One afternoon, while Lily naps, I sit on the couch with a cup of tea, my first warm beverage in weeks. Nathan is at the station, but he's left me a note on the fridge. Proud of you. Proud of us. Back by 6. N. I smile and something in my chest loosens. I check my email. There's a new message from Mom. Subject line, we've tried everything. I almost delete it without reading. Almost. But something compels me to open it. Inside, we know you won't speak to us. We know you've shut the door. We don't understand why you're being so rigid. We made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. You are being unreasonable. I exhale. Slow. Long. And finally, without hesitation, I reply. You unplugged medical equipment that keeps your granddaughter alive. That is not a mistake. That is a boundary you crossed that cannot be uncrossed. We are done. I hit send. Then block their email too. Later that night, after Lily falls asleep, I sit beside her crib and watch the steady rise and fall of her tiny chest. The green light glows on her monitor, blinking its rhythm into the darkness. Nathan comes in quietly, sits on the floor beside me. You okay? He whispers. I nod. For the first time, I think yes. He smiles softly. Good. We sit in silence for a long time. My hand rests on the edge of Lily's crib. Nathan reaches up and covers it with his own. She's safe, he murmurs. And she is. Finally. Completely. Because boundaries are not punishments. They're life preservers. They're the walls you build so your child doesn't grow up trapped in the same dynamics that hurt you. They're the quiet, steady promise. This cycle ends with me. As I watch Lily sleep, her breathing even and peaceful, I feel something deep and resolute settle into place. My parents unplugged my daughter's apnea monitor so my brother could charge his laptop. She survived because of luck. But my job isn't to rely on luck. My job is to make sure she doesn't need it. And that starts with one final non-negotiable truth. They will never get another chance to risk her life again.